Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks also to the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis for the warm invitation and also their professionalism in organizing this conference. To begin with, I'm not an expert on West Asia. The only relation I have with West Asia is that I live in West Asia, so I'm not an expert. But my paper deals with the impact of national security and the issue of minorities from human rights perspective. But before, I would like to share with you the idea that I have on why the region is in turmoil and chaos now, and what changed comparing to what was the issue before. I have an idea. I'll develop this idea tomorrow when I'll have another chance to speak in another session. But I'll provide you with this idea now briefly. Then I'll focus on the paper itself. I think what is different now compared to previous phases in the Middle East or West Asia is that not only we have terrorist groups in the region. The problem is that we have to focus on the fact that we also have terrorist states in the region. Almost, all I would say, most of the countries in the region are involved, to my mind, directly or indirectly in terrorist activities. They either involve themselves directly by guiding certain groups of armies into terrorist activities without declaring that, without accepting the responsibility, or they are providing finance and military and artillery to these groups. So to me, the reason why the whole region is in chaos is that there is no order. Not that we need a new order, not the old order is not working. There is no order at this moment. And because states are involved in terrorist activities. So if this is the case, it is difficult to ask states to engage in dialogue or to speak to their people or to do something else, because there is no order. No one accepts responsibility. Big powers equal also either they were active in creating these kind of groups, or they are active now providing them with what they need as to finance or to artilleries and whatnot. And unfortunately, certain states and governments in the region are also got involved deeply in terrorist activities. So there is no clear vision and how to approach this issue, unless that's why I don't understand the idea of Islamic military alliance to bomb another Muslim country, to finance terrorist groups, to fight and to kill Muslims another country again. This is an Muslim alliance for, this is the Islamic alliance for, this is the message of Islam, to create an alliance to bomb another country or to invade another country or to kill people in another country by terrorist groups. Apart from that, double standards are everywhere. Certain specific movements happening in different countries, but each country has different positions on different countries for the same movement. People uprising against government in Syria is supported by some and not supported by other countries. The same happens in Bahrain. The other countries supporting the uprising, and the countries had a different position in Syria. Now they are favoring the government. double standards is everywhere because there is no standards. I would like to, this is something new, but doesn't mean that before we didn't have terrorist activities in the region or we didn't have human rights violation in the region. This is not new to the region. We witnessed several examples of violence against people and violation of human rights. Unlike what was said this morning, a great example is Saddam Hussein's regime and the massacre he committed against Kurds, against Shias when he was in power. Maybe his government was secular, but what he did to religious groups was a massacre, and we have other examples too. So this is not something new, and we have other cases. I'll come up to these issues afterwards. But now I focus on what is the main or one of the main roots causing religious radicalism, and also terror, and also that in turn leads to terrorist activities in the region. And that's the issue of minorities, either religious, linguistic, or ethnic and racial minorities. This is a major issue in our region. That's why my paper focuses on the relation between national security and minorities, especially those minorities living on the borders. Unfortunately, for many countries in the region, including mine, before or after the revolution, the main idea for national security was that we don't have to protect the minorities and provide them with full rights and equality. They always kept minorities in poverty, in deprivation of their rights and equal citizenship, thinking that if we give equal rights to minorities, they would claim autonomy, and also they would think of creating their own country or declare secession. My argument is that this is not the case, and it's the other way around. If the governments pay attention to minorities, especially religious minorities on borders, we have the case in many countries in the region, that would strengthen national security. The idea is that more we pay attention to minorities to fulfill their rights, and more we try to eliminate discrimination towards minorities, more we secure national security, more we strengthen national security. That's the whole idea in this paper. Because if not, minorities don't have anything much to lose. It is easy for them to join the powers on the other side of the borders. But if they enjoy their rights and their equal citizenships, then they would think twice. They will feel affiliation to the central government, so to speak. That's why my idea is that there is a direct relationship between strengthening national security and fulfilling and realization of minorities, especially those living on the border. How we can achieve this? There are many ways. For example, we have the first demand of minorities is the elimination of discrimination. We have to we should not recognize any kind of discrimination towards minorities. And second is equality. Equality is not just absence of discrimination. Discrimination, we understand. Equality is to give them equal chance and equal opportunities to enjoy their equal citizenship, to have an inclusive approach towards minorities, to have them in a power sharing system. That's why we have to reform the electoral system, let them create their own political parties, they have their own share on political system. Not only as to the political system, but also as to the socio-economic situation of minorities. Most of the minorities, especially religious minorities, ethnic minorities, living on the border, they are deprived of their rights, social rights, economic rights. They live in poverty. I can give you examples from my own country that some religious minorities living on the border, they don't enjoy the basic and the minimum needs as to social rights and economic rights. This leads to tensions, this leads to crisis, and in turn it leads probably to terrorist activities. That's why the central governments in the region should focus on justice as well. Access to food, access to shelter, access to water these days. I think the access to water is going to be one of the main sources of tensions in our region very soon. In my country already began. Provinces, cities among each other, they have clashes. We face clashes over water sources. So, and I predict that this is going to happen among states and governments as well. So we should focus on these issues. Three kinds of minorities are recognized in international law: religious minorities, linguistic minorities, and racial and cultural minorities. We should observe their rights. We should recognize. We should have inclusive approach in order to have peace and peaceful coexistence. We have to recognize the differences. This is a human rights perspective I'm sharing with you today. Central governments need to recognize the differences. Right to be different is a human right. We should recognize all the differences as to the languages, religions, and ethnicities. Everyone has the right to be different. Everyone has to enjoy their equal citizenship, whereas they are different. They have to keep their own identity. I don't want to go to academic discussion here that we have different approaches towards minorities, assimilation or integrity. Now human rights approach is towards the integration of minorities, meaning that they are part of the bigger society, but at the same time they preserve their own identity, whatever it is. So this kind of approach to recognize the difference, to value the differences. Human rights teaches us that not only we should tolerate them, not only we should respect their ideas, and not only we should respect their identity, we have to see this as a value. This is a value, added value to the society. This approach is very inclusive, engages them into dialogue, into discussions in a bigger society, and this helps. This is the root, then eliminates the roots of the tensions. And here, to me, is the role of India. As a nation that with different languages and ethnicities and cultures and religions, they live together peacefully. From our perspective, there are small tensions inside the society, but from our perspective, this is a very peaceful society. I think this is what India should focus on, to promote its role on providing us with peaceful coexistence approach in our nation. Here India can play a great role to teach us how different ideas can live in a secular society, but at the same time preserve their own identity. This way we can eliminate the very roots of tensions, and also we can eliminate radical approaches to religion, to politics and ideologies. and then there will be no room for terrorist groups. And what I said at the beginning, terrorist states. I mentioned at the beginning, what is different now from before is not that we have terrorist groups now. The point is that we have terrorist states. Many of the states are engaged in terrorist activities, directly or indirectly. I explained it at the beginning of my talk. To eliminate this, we need to have a human rights perspective, to begin from the scratch, to recognize equal citizenship, to recognize differences, to have a peaceful and inclusive and receptive approach towards differences. And I would like to highlight again the role of India in this. I would like to draw the attention of researchers in this institute, a very prestigious institute, to work on this kind of role that India can play, to give us the idea how different groups and different religions can live at the same time together in peace and peaceful coexistence. Thank you very much, and I'll wait for your questions.